Good afternoon, and welcome to Read Woke, A Movement Takes Hold. My name is Daryl Grabarek, and I'm an editor at School Library Journal, and I welcome you to this panel. As one of the teens in Renée Watson and Ellen Hagan's Watch Us Rise states, we want to talk about the issues that matter to us, and we need space to do it. In this politically charged and divisive era, across the country, we've seen people being attacked because of the color of their skin, their religion, their sexual orientation, gender identity, and immigration status. And librarians have responded by embracing and heralding movements from Black Lives Matter to Me Too and Defend DACA and Never Again. Across the country, we have also seen school and public libraries open their doors as places of sanctuary and trust, places to initiate conversations that are long overdue. In myriad ways, librarians and authors have been providing spaces and places working to bridge real and perceived differences. And as our national discourse grows ever more antagonistic, our calls for own voices and we need diverse books and initiatives such as Reading Without Walls grow louder. Cicely Lewis, who some of you had the opportunity to meet this morning in a breakout session, is one of those bridge-building librarians. At Meadow Creek High School in Norcross, Georgia, Cicely presented her students with a challenge that inspired the theme of today's panel. And our guests, absolutely brilliant young adult authors, have invited us into the lives of protagonists whose voices have really been heard and communities that have long been underrepresented in literature. I'm thrilled to introduce them to you now. Renée Watson and Ellen Hagan, co-authors of Watch Us Rise, and Ibi Zoboi, author of Pride. And our Read Woke librarian, Cicely Lewis. A family emergency has unfortunately prevented Sajida Lee from joining us today, but I did want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about her book. Saints and Misfits is narrated by Jana Yusuf, a young Muslim woman who is exploring her identity through family, friendship, and faith. Jana is also dealing with the aftermath of a sexual assault by a member of her community, hailed by all as a good Muslim because he has memorized the Quran. In an interview, Ms. Ali has said Muslims have the same issues and ills facing other communities, but those issues, when viewed from other lenses, are often attributed to our differences. It's time we examine them through our lens. Saints and Misfits will be available to all of you after this session through the generosity of Simon & Schuster. I encourage you all to read it and share it if you haven't already. So to start off the panel will be Cicely Lewis, whose Read Woke initiative frames this conversation. As Cicely describes her student challenge, we will tweet a link to a Google Doc containing the list of Read Woke books she created for her students that has since been added to by SLJ readers. We invite you to add to it throughout the hour and days ahead and to use it as a collection development tool.
Wow. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here, and I just want to thank SLJ for giving me a platform to share, and for all of you who have shared at your schools and who are promoting the Read Woke books. I'm really excited. And so Read Woke, it's a feeling, a form of education, a call to action, our right as lifelong learners. It means arming yourself with knowledge to better protect your rights. It's learning about others to ensure that you treat everyone with the respect and dignity they deserve. And so that was the goal behind Read Woke. As I stated in my session earlier, there's so many things going on in our society. In previous years, I had a Harry Potter theme. just very, laid back and fun. And then, I don't know, just something about the news and the constant energy that I was surrounded with in my school. I knew I had to take this to another level for the students. And so I came up with this criteria, and the book must challenge a social norm, give voice to the voiceless, provide information about a group that has been disenfranchised, seek to challenge the status quo, and include a protagonist from an underrepresented or oppressed group. And so I used all of these to develop my list. I was on Twitter, reaching out to authors, reading the reviews in the back of SLJ, looking for books, and I just found we have so many, but there's still so much that we can have if we can get more writers to write their stories and share their stories. And that's what I'm encouraging my students to do, my Muslim students, my Vietnamese students, because they're like, Miss, we can't find any of those books with those protagonists. And so now I'm encouraging them to write woke. You write that book and you be that change. But this has just been an exciting initiative for me. The kids are coming and they want to read. And so I'm just so happy to be here today to share and to discuss with these amazing authors, because I feel like all of their books are the epitome of the books that I'm trying to get my kids to read, and they educate, and they're making my students social justice warriors. So I want to thank them and SLJ, and thank all of you for allowing me to be here today.
Right, so thank you, Cicely. Thank you for your challenge and your inspiration. And Cicely didn't mention, but her challenge has gone viral, for those of you who don't know. And there are librarians and teachers in other countries reading woke along with Cicely students. So it's pretty amazing. Librarians can change the world, right? So I thought I would ask, though, start by asking everybody on the here, was there a read woke book for you as a teenager?
As a teenager, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm
adult.
thinking about, I know some authors that I love now and authors that I've taught in the classroom. Lori Howes Anderson, of course, Nikki Grimes. I go to their work often when I'm thinking about how to approach serious topics and social issues in children's books. So those are kind of two of my go-to authors.
A book for me that was kind of a read woke book, what came to me in a roundabout way. I was a fan of a new movie star back then, Halle Berry. She was just coming onto the scene, and she had her first made-for-TV role. And I didn't get to see her in the movie theaters, but I got to see her for the first time in her made-for-TV series, Queen, Alex Haley's Queen. And I was a huge fan of her because we had the same haircut, so I thought I could aspire to be like her and even look like her, maybe. So I saw her for the first time on TV, and I was completely blown away by the story. And after that, I found Alex Haley's Queen in my school library, in my high school library. And that was the first book that really captured me. I read it in 2 days, and it was the quickest I've read a very thick book. I was 16 and was an avid reader. I was an avid reader in middle school, and in high school that slowed down significantly. So that was when I went back to that same section in my high school library and discovered Alex Haley's Roots and other slave narratives, and I was really, really intrigued by this idea of that there was once slavery, because I had not learned about it in school. And from then on, I discovered Toni Morrison's Beloved and Kindred by Octavia Butler. So that was, I could really name that one particular book. And interestingly enough, this is not a good thing, but I kept that copy because I didn't know. I still have it to this day. And we did pay for it. It was a Catholic school, but mainly because we didn't have any bookstores in my community. And if I really wanted a book that was, and this is way before Amazon, if I really wanted a book and I wanted to keep it, I kept it. And somehow, we paid the library fee eventually.
We forgive you.
Yeah, oh, sure. I love that. I love that you have that book still. I had an English teacher that, like a great librarian, exposed me to a bunch of amazing authors, and she gave me The Color Purple. And I remember being blown away by the book and then wanting to read everything that Alice Walker had. And I got grounded one weekend, and I had gotten at the Temple of My Familiar from my library. And I remember feeling, I was angry at first about being grounded, and remember reading that book cover to cover, and there were all of these complicated relationships, and there was an amazing kissing scene in it, and I was like, this is what I remember feeling like I want to write about, the complications of love and lives, and what does that look like. So I remember vividly reading that and how it shifted things for me.
Cicely, did you want to add something?
I remember reading Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred Taylor, and it being about Mississippi, which is where I'm originally from, and just the whole sharecropping experience, because at that age, in our textbooks, we were taught, there was slavery, then the slaves were free, and then everybody just lived happily ever after. But there was a whole portion of this whole sharecropping experience, which was another form of slavery that I had, no idea about. So I ended up reading the next book, which was, I think, Let the Circle Be Unbroken, and things like that. And then I graduated on to Richard Wright, Black Boy, also another famous Mississippian writer. And I just found his book because my sister was in community college, and I found it in her room, and I devoured it. So those are just some woke books that have inspired me.
I just want to add, so I froze when you asked that question because I didn't read a lot of woke books when I was younger. I was exposed to the whole notion of kind of talking back to the world through your art, through poetry, not necessarily novels and fiction. And so when I think about the poets that were introduced to me as a teenager, then I'm thinking about, Gwendolyn Brooks and Lucille Clifton, Maya Angelou, and those were the texts that kind of got me thinking about myself in relationship to the world, and that you could actually write about your people, and you could write in the language that your people speak, and that everyday people had a story to tell that was just as important. And so it was poetry that became my first love and kind of my first example of writing about social issues. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Most of our attendees haven't read your books, so the books I've mentioned, Pride and Watch Us Rise. So I'm just going to focus on those, and you can give us a little insight about them. But as I was reading them and rereading them, I said to one of my colleagues, I just want to face them on the table together, because they were having conversations, and so many conversations, and I felt if I just listened, I would have a whole list of questions for you today. But so some of the whispers and shouts that I was hearing were about family, friendship, community, racism, art, feminism, shaming, labeling, class. There was a lot, diversity within a community. But I felt that at their heart, these books were really about young women finding their way and trying to find out who they were and who they want to be. So what is it you would like our audience to know about your characters and their journeys?
For Zuri in Pride, as you know, Pride is a remix. It's a record scratch. I feel like I have to do that each time. And then as opposed to a straight retelling, and with remix there's a new rhythm. The lyrics may be the same, but there's a new beat. There's a little hip hop in there, a little rhyme, but it's through poetry, through spoken word poetry. But the seeds of the story are there. But I always feel it's necessary for me to tell readers, don't expect an exact replica of Pride and Prejudice with just the characters colored in brown. So Zuri, in that sense, is not an exact replica of Elizabeth Bennet in 1813. It's 2018, and she's not wanting to get married or married rich. So for me, I replaced this idea of marriage or the institution of marriage with education. And right now, education is a way for young women to move up in the world, to become financially independent, as opposed to being financially codependent in early 1800s England. So for Zuri, she really wants to get to college. And for most of us, we think, of course she's going to college, of course she's going to get in. But for a lot of disenfranchised families and young people in communities where the schools don't have the resources, her grades may not be the best, her test scores may not be the best because she probably did not have access to the best teachers or the best books or what have you, but she really wants to go to college, and not just any community college. She wants to go to Howard University, but it's expensive. She doesn't know if she'll get financial aid. She doesn't know if her test scores will be right. But she feels passionately about her community and what she knows best, which is her culture. So she's trying to write the best application essay that she can write. And what I would want readers to know about my character Zuri is that she may not be the smartest, but she's passionate. And young characters don't always have to be that whip smart, super feminist, know-it-all girl that we expect them to be. She doesn't know it all because she's limited by the resources in her community, but she wants to know more. So for characters of color coming from, poorer communities or working class communities, I think it's not that we have low expectations for them. I think it's to really see them for who they are and where they come from. I did not want her to be this sort of condescending character in the way that Elizabeth Bennet looks down at her family or her, the norms of her community. My Zuri has a lot of pride, but she's not fully aware of what's out there in the world. So in the beginning, she's surrounded by her community, and then at the end of the novel, the world opens up to her when she steps outside of her community. So I would want readers to know that there's room for our characters to grow within the pages of our stories. They still have so much to learn because after all, they're 16 and 17. So I think just affording them the sympathy to, how books are supposed to make us more empathetic. I think it's important for us to be more empathetic to the characters too.
So in Watch Us Rise, I tell the story of Jasmine. Jasmine and Chelsea are best friends, and Jasmine is an African-American girl. She lives in Harlem. She's plus size. She's in a theater club at her school. And she keeps getting these roles that are stereotypical for black girls. And not just black girls, but big black girls. So she's really frustrated at this school that's supposed to be all about inclusion and social justice and equity. She's like, y'all not really living up to the mission and to the vision that you said this school is about. So she's getting frustrated, but she's also kind of been taught that you can't always speak up. You have to pick and choose your battles. While Chelsea is a little more ready to go at the school, Jasmine's a little more reserved because she's like, I'm always gonna have to say something. Either it's about my race or my weight or my gender. So if I'm always responding, I'm gonna be depressed. I'm gonna be angry all the time. So it takes her a while to really find her voice and stand up with Chelsea. And when they start their club, their feminist club, she writes a blog post that goes viral, and she's kind of standing up for herself and saying, I wanna be able to play any role because I'm talented and not be typecast into these roles that you think I should play because of how I look or because of where I come from. So it starts there, but over the book, she is also just learning about how to stand up for herself and find her voice and not really hide anymore. So she writes poems and monologues and performs them on stage. And so she's starting to say her own words and not the words that are scripted for her. She's used to acting and playing characters. And so she is on a journey of, well, who are you? Outside of characters and roles that you play, who are you as a person? So she finds her voice that way.
So I think Chelsea, so I wrote, the book goes back and forth between chapter and chapter, and I am Chelsea's voice. And I feel like there was another book, this will go back to it in a second, but that I found when I was in high school called Listen Up, Voices from the Next Feminist Generation. It was a hot pink cover. And I remember my parents were like, all right, get it, whatever. And I remember reading that and being like, oh, I'm gonna rage against the system, and I'm gonna get in there, and I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. And I feel like that is Chelsea. I feel like she has a lot of energy. She is trying to figure out her way in the world where she doesn't think women are either written the right way, or she doesn't feel like she's reading 17 magazine voraciously, but she's also wanting to rip it apart. So I think she's complicated. She is always trying to look a certain way, but pretend that she is not looking that certain way. She's falling for the guy who she knows she's not really supposed to be falling for. And so I think there's a back and forth for her where she's figuring out what does feminism mean to her. And I think Jasmine's character really stabilizes Chelsea. I think she's like, pull it back a little bit, calm down. And I think Chelsea's journey then is her figuring out how do I use my voice? How do I calm it down a little bit? How do I figure out what I want to say and bring people along with me? How do I start to have these conversations and figure out what it is I want to say to the larger world?
And they complement each other so well. Calm each other down, but just complement it. Your characters reveal themselves to readers in so many ways, but what I felt was so powerful in both books was the written and spoken word. And I'm wondering if you can discuss that and perhaps read a selection, a blog piece, poem from your books, and talk a little bit about your selection and maybe, give us some context in relation to your characters.
I'll start this way down. So yes, so this is the remix part of my story, and it's this is just, I love putting in poetry and lyrics to break up what I feel is oftentimes the monotony of prose. And I was a storyteller a long time ago, like oral storytelling, and I love this idea of call and response. I love in Haitian culture, before a storyteller begins her story, she asks click, and the audience would say kak. So it's a way to not only break up the prose, but I feel like it's a call and response. For young readers, sometimes it's just a break a little bit. I love seeing white space on the page. So that's why I include a lot of it here. Now, the thing that I realized, I don't know, I'm not seeing it in reviews, is how my character Zuri remixes classical poems as well. So it's my way of it's kind of like metafiction a little bit. So there's a Shakespearean sonnet that she kind of awkwardly remixes. And this one, I'm going to read it. I don't want this to be a spoiler, but yeah, it's a spoiler. No, okay. But I wanted just to share this example of Zuri remixing a classical poem in the way that I remixed a classical novel. And I'll test you a little bit, if you don't mind, to see if you could recognize the poem. Elegy for Paola Esperanza Negron, or Ay Madrina, Mi Madrina. Ay Madrina, Mi Madrina, the very last drum beat has left its mark. Its pulsing rhythm leaves no sound, like blown out candles in the dark. The singing voices muted, the quiet prayers unheard. The orishas have retreated, your shining light now blurred. Pero mi corazón, the only music left, against the melody of my own song, to my sweet Oshun of love bereft. Ay Madrina, mi Madrina, who will clear these lovers' paths to walk these noisy streets where toppled buildings unearth our wrath. Newcomers fill these spaces with shiny jewels and polished stone. We blacks and browns have surrendered while our memory stands alone. Ahora, madrina, querida abuela, this is the greatest theft. Los antepasados have stolen you from my sweet Ochun of love bereft.
So does anyone have a guess here?
Oh. You could yell it out. No one? Who is it? No? Okay, I'll say no. Oh, Captain, my Captain. I've been to other places and other teachers got it. Young people have gotten to it. Oh, Captain by Walt Whitman. And I chose that one because Walt Whitman is a native Brooklynite.
I'm gonna do the one. I forgot to say that Chelsea's also a poet in it, so she's talking a lot about figuring things out through poems. So I'm gonna read. This is the first stanza is a found poem taken directly from the covers of 17 magazine. So it's directly from what 17 magazine's putting out there. And the second stanza is what she wishes, is what Chelsea wishes was on 17. So it's called Beauty Magazine Redo. Found poem. You won't be able to stop checking out your butt, but be brave this year. This year look hot, hot, hot in your jeans. Girls gone wild for less. Less is more is more, but how far must a girl go to get his attention? Hot abs, hot arms, hot thighs, how far must a girl go? His attention, how hot, hot, hot is his attention, girl? Get Instagram, Instaglam, oh, fashion, beauty, and body tricks, tricks of the beauty trade. Bikini body confidence, blitz, glitz, guts, butts, and bends, sluts and steady glamour, sexy cuts, sexy tone, sexy, 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 sexy. Amazing shine, shine and get the guy, get flat abs fast, get major confidence, get gutted, get guilty, get major stressors, get smooth skin fast, get 625 pretty looks for you, party hair, party skin, party boobs, party bod, 763 fashion tips and beauty tricks, boost your bra size in 1 month. I don't even know how that's possible. How's that? Boost your hot, flat abs, boost your confidence, boost your mood with 659 new luscious lip colors. Learn to kiss sexy like. This issue is for you. This issue is for you. Is this issue for you? Who is this issue for? How about this? Arithmetic, paradoxes, and aerial coordinates and butterflies. You won't be able to stop mastering quadratic equations. This year be brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. How about his attention is secondary to your valedictorian speech? Class president, National Honor Society, so let him choke on your algebraic dust. His attention, over it, girl. Get Instagram, InstaSharp, all-knowing and resourceful, oh. Coding, programming, and tech tricks. Tricks of the job trade, yoga body confidence, smarts, slicks, prowess, prodigy, and precocity. Brainy moves, brainy body confidence, brainy flair, brainy knack, brainy, 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 brainy. Get the grades, get a 4.0, get the gold medal in the 400-meter dash, get jacked biceps, get the glory, 625 genius moves for you, 763 ways to find and pleasure you. Learn to love your boobs, bod, homage the muscles in your mind. Boost your IQ in 1 month. Boost your peptides, peripheral nervous system. Learn how to be a CEO, CFO, executive direct like a boss. Do it all brainy-like. Know this is the issue for you.
Go Chelsea.
So I'm going to read a blog post that Jasmine writes. So I think it's important that girls, talk back to stereotypes, to assumptions, to what they're supposed to be. And there are moments in the book where people are kind of telling Jasmine and Chelsea that it's not that serious, that what they're going through isn't that big of a deal. And so this is kind of her speaking back to, let me tell you what it's like to be me and to be in this body and in this skin. This is called What It Be Like on Being a Girl. It'd be like men telling you to smile when you're all out of sunshine, like your mouth being more familiar with saying yes than no. It'd be like hiding sometimes, wrapped in puffy coat, too loose dress, nothing clinging or low cut. It'd be like wanting to be seen and not wanting to be seen all at once, like knowing you have the right answer, but letting him speak anyway. It'd be like second guessing your know-how, like fact checking your own truth. It'd be like older women telling you how to get a man, even if they don't have a man, even if you don't want a man. It'd be like learning how to play hard to get, how to entice, how to be sweet honey always. It'd be like being told you are too sweet, too loose, too woman and not girl enough, too girl and not enough woman. It'd be like knowing all the world is expecting you to be nurturer when maybe you want to hunt. It'd be like being a wild flame trying to burn while everyone else wants to extinguish it. It'd be like being told it's okay to cry, but it'd never be like rage unfiltered, anger expressed. It'd be like trying so hard to hold everything in, emotion, brilliance, waste. Breathe in always, never let out. It'd be like stomach cramps and bloated belly, like cravings and mood swings like spring days. It'd be like trusting the mirror when it shows you your beauty. It'd be like trusting your heart when it tells you who to love, who to walk away from. It'd be like knowing you can always start again, that you can always create and make something because you are made for birthing. It'd be like meeting other women, older and younger, living in no more breath. It'd be like their spirits are inside you, remaking you into something better and bolder every time you say their names, read their poems, learn their legacy. It'd be like knowing you are what praying women had in mind when they travailed for tomorrow. It'd be like knowing you are a promise, a seed. It'd be like knowing without you planted and watered and nurtured, the world can't go on.
Thank you, all three of you. As you delve into your characters and the challenges they face, and Renée, you were talking about Jasmine and being roles suggested to her that she would never want to take, so stereotypical of, and you know, as you talk about them as young women, as people of color, feminists, daughters, classmates, and you push back on stereotypes and labels from outside the community, but you're also doing it from within the community. You're having some fun there too. I'm thinking of Zuri's initial reaction to the Darcy family and the reaction to her. And then again in Watch Us Rise, I guess this is where more fun comes in. When you're looking at the two young women, their biases and assumptions, one about the teacher who the teacher is going home to cook supper for, and then also the assumption that their male classmates aren't interested in some issues, discussions of women's issues, and being able to say, well, you know, men's magazines do the same sort of thing. So I'm wondering if you could so we'll start with Zuri and her reaction to the Darcy family moving into this home on her Bushwick, Brooklyn block.
So Bushwick was the first neighborhood I moved to when I moved to Haiti, and it was very different than the Bushwick of today. It was dilapidated and broken, but now it's undergoing has undergone urban renewal or gentrification, and many of the homes there are going for in the millions. So but the native residents are still living there. So Zuri lives in a one-bedroom apartment with her 4 other sisters and her parents. And there was like a dilapidated house across the street, and it's been like that her whole life. And it's the same in a lot of neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Just rundown buildings are just part of the community, and people don't see it as an eyesore when it's been there for so long. So this rundown house has been a haunted house in her imagination. Kids played around there, so it's a beloved part of her block, but it's been renovated to look like a mini mansion now. And her sisters at the beginning of the novel are taking bets on who's going to move in. They know that it's definitely going to be a rich family, but they are betting, Zuri bets that it's a white family because that's what's been going on in her neighborhood. But her sisters really think it's a black family, and it's going to be some entertainers or rappers or ballers. They're just having fun with it. And they think they're going to be famous by association. So Zuri is completely blown away when the car pulls up and it's a black family, and they look very wealthy, and 2 cute boys step out of a car. And this changes everything. Of course, her 4 sisters are immediately smitten, but Zuri is really, really judgmental, because it doesn't matter who they are, whether they're black or white, they are coming to change her neighborhood. And she really cannot stand them immediately, because she assumes that Darius Darcy, my Fitzwilliam Darcy equivalent, is judging her and her sisters because she knows that her sisters are loud and brazen and hood, as she says. So to her judgment is they look like her, they look like everybody else, but they're really not like everybody else in the community because they have the ability to renovate a whole house and they move in and everything is already decorated for them. So she sees the class difference immediately. Here she is trying to get financial aid and she sees her father working 2 jobs and she sees her parents not necessarily struggling, but they're living paycheck to paycheck, even though there's lots of love in the community. But this family's moving in. They're not going to fit in because they don't struggle the same way that she does. So she can't stand them initially.
Yeah, I love complicated characters, right? I don't want to ever write a character that feels so perfect and they get it right all the time. They're the very best friend, they're the perfect student, the good child, that's not realistic. And so when we were thinking about the tension in the book, we decided that we didn't want the girls to have a fallout, right? Because we also were very mindful of a lot of YA books and making girls be catty and not like each other and all of that, but we knew that they couldn't be perfect. And so one of the moments in the story, for Jasmine's character anyway, where she's really like, oh, Chelsea and I are so much alike and we love each other so much, and Chelsea's such an activist, and yet there's a scene where these are some spoiler alerts, the girls are rallying and kind of protesting and they're making t-shirts. And Chelsea is responsible for ordering the shirts. And she orders sizes, and none of the sizes fit Jasmine. Jasmine's a plus-size girl. And there's not a shirt that fits her. And there's this moment where both of them realize that even though they're so woke, right, and in these other ways, there's some blind spots that they have. And I think that was important to put in the book. For one, we wanted to talk about intersectionality, right? It's one thing to be a girl, to be a black girl, to be a big black girl living in this world. So we wanted to talk about that, but we also wanted to kind of show how you can be so knowledgeable about certain things and then completely ignorant in other ways, and just not thinking about where are your blind spots, what are the invisible things that you're not thinking about, and the issues that aren't your issues. Are you still going to be an advocate for other people, even if you don't fall into that category or into that group? And right now, we just wanted to kind of make sure young people are thinking about that too. Like, it's not just about fighting for what you believe in because it's going to affect you personally, but how about take a stand because it's right, or because it's, the thing to do, and really challenge people to think along those lines.
I want to say that I think if you're writing for YA, I think you have, I feel like I have a lot of heart for high schoolers. I know that I work with young people. I would give a quick story that I was riding on the train to an event with one of my, a brilliant, amazing young poet, and she went through she did a running monologue from 161st to 125th, where she was talking about her poetry, and she was so proud of it, and she was, feeling great about it. And then by 145th Street, she was like, but I feel like I'm not going to pass geometry, and I'm not going to make it, and how am I going to get through high school? And so her emotions had run just the gamut of everything. And by the time we got out, I said, listen, the high schoolers, your brain is still, you don't have the frontal lobe yet. You have the decision making, the part of your brain that makes good decisions and is rational isn't even fully there yet. So she was like, wait, frontal lobe? She's like Googling frontal lobe on her phone. But this idea that Chelsea is not, that young people they are fully grown in some ways, and they're so not in other ways. So they have so much, I think there's that moment where Chelsea feels like she knows everything, and her teacher's like, actually, I'm going home to my partner who's a woman. And James says, we could look at men's health, and they're doing the same. She's not seeing outside of her own orbit sometimes. So I feel like writing and letting young people know it's okay to not know everything. I don't know everything, and I'm almost 40. There are these moments where you have to, there's growth moments, and I think that I like that part of them figuring out that they can make mistakes and it's okay, and they can talk and figure it out.
Thank you. I have so many questions, but Time is running. Could you talk about their families? Because, family is important to them, but of course they're teenagers, so it's a big source of tension. And these characters seem to go in and out. Sometimes the family is really important and they need their family, and other times they're just like, wait a minute, my mother said that? Or so just a little bit about their family. And I guess even when I think of family, I think, their community sometimes, because they have some wonderful adult mentors in their lives, all of these characters. And they're such interesting characters. So family, mentors, you could take it where you want.
I love including adults in YA. Sometimes authors kind of take them out as if teenagers are just living with no adults in their lives, but I love to integrate all of that. And Jasmine's character is very, very close to her family, especially to her father, who is kind of where she gets her activism spirit from. He's a leader in the community, and they're very close. And she's watching this marriage between her mom and dad and realizing that even though they're leaders and even though he's an activist, they still kind of go along the lines of more traditional gender roles. And so she is kind of shocked by that realization. Her and her mom aren't as close. She loves her mom. She knows her mother loves her. But she has a little, I think maybe even resentment as far as like, how come my mom doesn't know how to do the bills? How come dad is responsible for taking out the trash? Like, it's very traditional. And I think that kind of gets under her skin a little bit. And her mother is on her about her weight, and in a way that's not about you being healthy. It's usually, when she makes comments, it's about how she looks. And don't you want to wear this? And, that kind of thing. And so there's some tension there, because I think that tension exists in real life, and we're just always trying to make sure we're, putting in what's realistic and hopefully helping young people process that and talk about it and think about how they want to be in the world and what kind of adults they want to be by watching the adults that are in the book.
Now, when I talk about pride, I'm always not often going to bring up Pride and Prejudice, because a lot of decisions are made are either in contrast to Pride and Prejudice or because of the elements in Pride and Prejudice. So in Pride and Prejudice, it's third person, and the third person voice is kind of a highbrow, snarky voice. And Mrs. Bennet is a beloved character. She's one of my favorite characters, and she's trying to get her daughters married off, and she's kind of this frantic woman. I could have written my Mrs. Benitez the same way, but at the same time, there's something that happens in the book that I didn't want, that made me realize that I didn't want to mock. I didn't want to patronize whatever it is that's happening at the end of the book. This is a poor family. A wealthy family is moving into their neighborhood, and things are going to change for them in a kind of a sad way. So I didn't want to make fun of that issue. So because of that, I made my Mrs. Benitez and Mr. Benitez a loving couple. I didn't want her to be in a marriage that she didn't want to be in, because it's not 1813 England. They would not be together otherwise. So for a couple to be together and to really care about the well-being of their children, they had to love each other. And I also added the element that they got together when they were teenagers. So I'm saying something about love and marriage, in that they got together at a young age. Mrs. Benitez was a teen mom. She had 4 other daughters. So basically 5 daughters back to back. And there's a scene in Pride where Zuri talks about how she gets her mean mug. Her mean mug is how she looks at newcomers in her neighborhood with just a mean look on her face. And she perfected that when people would look at her family and judge them. When she would be on the subway and her mom with all her 5 daughters, and people would think that she's probably single, she's probably on food stamps or EBT or what have you. And she's learned to kind of push away from those stares by staring back at strangers and say, we may be poor, we may be messy, but we love each other. So I wanted to create that loving family. I didn't want them to be suffering. They're poor. Zuri does carry an EBT card, which is basically food stamps or they're on social services, it's true. So, but they're not suffering. They may not have a lot of money, but Mrs. Benitez is always cooking for the neighborhood, basically. And that's the kind of community I came from, where it was, there was unemployment, there was crime, but at the heart of it all was lots of love. They have block parties, they sit on each other's stoops, they do each other's hair. The men in the neighborhood pull out barrel grills for jerk chicken. There's a bodega owner. And most importantly, the landlady in Pride is an element from Pride and Prejudice that wasn't in Pride and Prejudice. In American Street 2, I have my teen characters have elder characters, not just adults. I have grandfatherly and grandmotherly characters because I think that generation gap is very important. I need to close that in my story. So there's a character named Madrina who is, in her 60s or 70s, and she's also a Santeria priestess. And Santeria is a Puerto Rican African traditional spiritual system. And she's basically like a fortune teller, or, she has a crystal ball down in her basement and people come to her for love advice. So Zuri comes to her to complain about her sister Janae, who's falling in love with the rich boy across the street. So they have that bond where she can share these stories with her, and Madrina's like, calm down, you're still young. So for me, I need to have elders in my books as a way to guide the young people. And it's not always the parents who are doing the guiding. It's these figures that I feel like I need to close that generational gap.
I'll just say quickly too that for us, the mentors in the teachers were really important, because I know for Renee and I, there were such significant people, teachers in the classroom, who were our mentors and changed the shape of everything for us. I think about Cicely, the students in your library who you're shifting that as adults and teachers and librarians in the schools, you have the power to change and shape things for young people. So I think it was really important. I love the idea of older folks who know more and are sort of setting a path. I think that's so important.
I think your comments will segue into two last questions I have, and I'm going to combine them because I do want to leave an opportunity if anyone has a question to ask. But thinking you're all active in your communities beyond your writing, I know. So I'm wondering, and you work with young people. So we're feeling this shift in what we want to see being published and what we want to hand to our students. Are you seeing it in your work, in your communities? Are you, and when your school visits, what are students asking for? How are they responding to your books? And Cicely, too, your students, having given them a start, what are they asking for now?
Well, now they come in, and I put this in the article, and they're like, Miss, I want some more of those woke books that you book talk. And when I had to stop book talking some of the books because we didn't have enough copies, and they were like, I want that book. As soon as I finished, they would come running to get the book. They want books. I was telling Renee, when her book, Piecing Me Together, I couldn't get my hands on it. I had to go buy my own copy because the girl on the cover, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a beautiful black girl on the cover, and she has an afro, and the girls, they just, they love that book. So they want to see themselves on the cover of books. They want to see characters that look like them, and they are coming in, they're checking out books, and they're even buying books. So when we ran out, I said, look, you all can, I know we're a Title I school, but you can go on Amazon and you can get these books, or you can go to the public library. And so, because they need to create their own libraries at home and invest in books. So that's something else that I'm trying to show them, that make your own library and invest in books, and also write books too.
I'm also a mom of teens. I have an 11th grader, a 9th grader, and a 6th grader. So what I'm noticing with my 11th grader is that she's, every arc that I get, she grabs it. She sees whether she likes it. Some she reads to the end, and some she has opinions about. So what I noticed with her and her friends, she's a Brooklyn kid. They just want to books that push the envelope. Right now, she reads YA for fun, but she's just going into the adult books now and seeing what's within those pages. What's the thing that can like make her angry? I'm noticing that they want to feel stuff. It's all about feelings when you're 16, you know? So it's just something that'll just hit her in the gut and just really, really get her angry. So I'm writing to that end. I'm seeing what they want, something that is hard hitting and just the shock value too. But most importantly, she does want to see herself in the pages of books and not in ways that she's used to seeing it. She wants adventure. Even my son, I'm struggling to find books that my son really loves, and he wants those big action adventure books. He wants the fantasy, he wants the science fiction, and I think I think there is more of that coming in. I'm realizing young people have big questions about the world, and they need answers. They need different kinds of answers. And I realize that they need books that ask those big questions too. So yeah, that's what I feel like I'm doing, and I really believe that other authors are doing the same.
Yeah, it's been really exciting going to schools. I just got back from the West Coast doing author visits in middle schools and high schools, and yeah, young people are asking questions. They want to talk, and I don't know that that's new. I think that now adults are becoming more comfortable having those conversations, and that young people have always wanted to talk about. When I think about myself as a kid, I knew what was going on in my community. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and there was a lot of racism happening on a daily basis that was blatant. But no one was really talking about it, you know. But I wanted to talk about it, and so I'm hoping that our books are providing a space for young people to see, okay, it's okay to talk about these things, and that what's happening is really happening. You know what I mean? I talk about this a lot. When you are in a room and something either funny or awkward is going down, and you have that one person that you can look at and be like, what is going on right now? Do you see this? Like, that is what I want my book to do for young people. I want them to feel like we are having a conversation where I'm saying, I see you. Yeah, that's happening. This is real. Body shaming is a thing. Yes, microaggressions exist. And not just I know I'm very proud that young Black girls are seeing themselves in my books, and that, the letters I get and all of that mean a lot to me. I am also really moved by white teens who come to me and say, thank you. Like, I needed to know how to be a better ally, or I'm trying to figure this out with my friend, and this scene helped me do that. And so I think it's important for us to remember that the balance that we always talk about in children's literature, about windows and mirrors, and that, yes, give our books to kids of color, but also give them in schools where maybe no one looks like the person on the cover, because they need to be reading about those worlds. Give books that have girls on the cover to boys, because our boys need to be taking in voices that are not theirs and that are maybe saying some different things. And so I'm really excited about those conversations, especially with young boys who are speaking up in class and asking questions about being a feminist. And I'm just like, wow, you're in the 7th grade and you're asking, it's been really fun to have those conversations. And that teachers are making space for that in the classroom and in libraries means a lot to me as a writer, and I think is a powerful thing.
Yeah, I feel like the more I can find truth-telling about the lives of young people, the more excited I am. I work for a social justice-based arts organization in the Bronx called Dream Yard. And some of the work we do is I direct the International Poetry Exchange Program. So tomorrow we're about to bring 10 students from the Bronx to Japan to partner with 10 students in Tokyo and 10 from Seoul and 10 from Manila. And there will be 40 kids from all around the world and the Marble Hill, the school from here represents kids from Dominican Republic and Gambia and Ghana. And they're all speaking speaking the same language of teenagerhood. So we've done this partnership for about 4 years, and whenever they share poems, every time a kid reads a love poem, around the world, we do it on teleconference, they all go, oh, love. And then they write a poem about their mom's cooking, or traditions, or things they do, rituals that they have with their families, or the people they admire, their grandparents in their families. And there's something that transcends for young people. The more we can get people from around the world to be having these conversations, I feel like that's what these books do. It opens this other world that you didn't see before. I don't know Bushwick that well, but at reading Pride, I see it, because it gives me this insight into a world that I want to know. So I feel like for young people especially, the more we can figure out what are those common threads, how do we connect those, that's powerful.
And just going back to the line I quoted when I first stepped up to the podium, we want to talk about issues that matter to us, and we need a space to do it. So thank you for providing that space for our students and for us. We might have time for like 1 or 2 questions if anyone would like to raise their hand. No? It's okay. We have something exciting following this. As I mentioned, Sajida Ali's Saints and Misfits will be available to everybody as you leave. And we also have a limited number of copies of Pride and Watch Us Rise, thanks to Bloomsbury and HarperCollins. So we're going to let Ibi sneak out because she has a plane to catch. But I understand Renee and Ellen will be around to sign books. So we'll give them a moment. Thank you.